Hey everyone, happy Monday. So, we have talked a lot about all the Epstein drama, and that pretty much, that did me in. I was like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. I don't even want to talk about politics anymore. Like, I was just getting so frustrated, which I feel like everyone is at this point. It's like, what the hell is going on? But more information has come out, not just with that, but behind, well, like what's going on behind the scenes in the Trump administration. So we're going to talk about that today because there's so many theories circulating online, and it actually kind of gives me some hope. I hate to say that. It's like he's not off the hook yet, but I am optimistic that maybe there's more than what meets the eye. So let's get into like the new development, okay? So we all remember the Russia collusion hoax. I mean, how could you forget? We heard about that every day forever. And that was where, the mainstream media and the Democrats were claiming that Trump won the election, his first term, because Russia interfered and somehow, there was election interference. And it was okay for them to talk about election interference. It just wasn't okay for us to talk about it when Biden won. Anyhow, NSI Director Tulsi Gabbard just declassified a trove of internal intelligence docs from the Obama era. And it proves that top national security officials, including Obama, James Clapper, John Brennan, John Kerry, Susan Rice, Andrew McCabe, and James Comey, they knew that Russia did not alter any votes in the 2016 election, yet they still pushed that narrative of Russian interference. Now, when I first heard this, I was thinking, duh, like we all know that. But now there's actual evidence and documentation to prove everything that went down, which is a pretty big deal. So, Tulsi Gabbard said that these maneuvers were aimed at delegitimizing President Trump's victory and amounted to what she's calling a years-long coup. So, in a press release on July 18th, she framed the issue as not partisan, but foundational to democracy, accusing Obama era officials of a treasonous conspiracy designed to subvert the will of the American people. And now she's taken all those documents and forwarded it to the DOJ, calling for criminal referrals to hold everyone involved accountable and insisting, quote, no matter how powerful, every person involved must be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, end quote. So that got me really excited. But then she also noted that while Obama can't be jailed, warning it could spark civil unrest, the truth and transparency remain vital. So as soon as I heard that, I'm like, okay, I feel like she's already priming people for no actual arrests or like no actual jail time and accountability as usual. But what do you make of it?
Yeah, I was kind of like you. I was okay, I'm kind of excited. And then I was like, nope, and got totally deflated because, especially when it comes to Obama, I want to address like her civil unrest comment. And this may, get me a lot of hate, but I really don't give a fuck because what really bothers me about this whole thing is this isn't just about Obama being an elite or part of the deep state. It's about Obama being black and specifically about Obama being America's first black president. And people are too afraid to call that out directly because that would automatically label you as a racist because we've been so conditioned and brainwashed by this narrative when the truth is that it's a narrative that Obama fucking created. And he did it all under this guise of, the hope and unity scam that he had, just like Biden's false narrative of protecting democracy while trying to take away our freedoms. Like, look at what Obama did during his presidency. He is the president who did the most damage to our country in modern history in terms of furthering this racial divide narrative. Like he literally had the opportunity to unite the country, especially after the whole Michael Brown shooting in Ferguson, Missouri, when, the media was running wild with the whole hands up, don't shoot narrative. And what did Obama do? He promoted the lie that cops were like hunting black men. He let cities burn while pushing this systemic racism narrative. He invited radical BLM activists to the White House. He targeted police departments with consent decrees and federal oversight and created this entire racist narrative that really just fucked over the communities that needed the most protection because police no longer wanted to do their job and were no longer allowed to do their job. And what happened? Crime started surging. Obama is the president who started pushing critical race theory, creating the bullshit diversity training and cultural competency and implicit bias, where then you had every federal agency, school, the military, everything getting infiltrated with this DEI ideology that was literally based on the idea that America is systemically racist. And since Obama's presidency, there has been this total shift in politics where disagreeing with the liberal agenda is seen as discrimination, racism, and oppression. And it's a false narrative. And the whole time, what was Obama doing? He was getting richer and more powerful off all of this chaos that he was creating in our country. He's like a professional race hustler. And like he turned it all into federal policy, completely changed the cultural fabric of our country in a very negative way. And I don't think he's ever going to be held accountable for that or for any of the crimes that he was complicit in. And I think a lot of that has to do with this race issue. Because imagine if all the information coming out right now was about Trump and how his administration knowingly fabricated a Russian interference narrative, used that to justify illegal surveillance on political opponents, triggered a $32 million investigation like the Mueller investigation, and completely poisoned the public trust in our electoral system. What would be happening? The media, the Democrats, the deep state, they would all be calling for blood. They would be demanding treason charges, prison time. I mean, look what they did to Trump during the past 4 years with multiple impeachment attempts, labeling him a threat to democracy because he questioned election integrity that is turning out to be true, right? Yet because it's Obama, we're supposed to give him a pass even though he was complicit in this completely made up, extreme, like very highly detailed psy-op on the American people. It's a complete double standard and it's selective justice based on identity politics and this very false racial narrative and manipulation of the public to fit this agenda. And I feel like people are so fucking brainwashed by all of this DEI culture and all of this race baiting that they don't see the truth. So even though Tulsi said yesterday that she is turning over all this evidence to the DOJ for criminal referrals, like, no, I don't think anything's going to come of this because I think it's just more political theater because she is 100% right that this would spark a civil race war in our country. And she didn't use the word race, but it would start a civil race war in our country.
It's so interesting because I didn't really sit down and think about it, but when you look back at like our childhood, I don't remember, and of course I was a kid, so maybe it could have been this way, but I have asked my parents and people that are older than me, like were things this divided politically? Like were people really at odds? And they're like, no. I mean, you could
No.
talk to your neighbors and have a completely different opinion from them, and they didn't care. It was like not that big of a deal. Everyone was sort of united as the middle class and weren't
Mm-hmm.
fighting over these social issues. And so it's like, well, when did that start? And I think you're right. I think it was with Obama, and I think it was very intentional because it goes back to the whole thing of if you can keep the people divided and fighting amongst themselves, they're not going to pay attention to what you're doing over here. And, it's like we were baited into, everyone disagreeing on these like social issues and not paying attention to the fact that, like, for example, he bombed 8 countries in a row, just as one example, or he didn't follow through on many of his campaign promises. And I think that's where like the hatred for one another, where people are just so divided based on political party, I think that's where the seed was planted. And maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, I firmly believe that because I look at my own childhood and I had friends from every fucking background. I it was like the Rainbow Coalition, right? And I had a ton of gay friends. I knew trans people. Like my social circle was everybody. And we never fucking talked about politics ever. There was never a divide between you don't believe in what I believe, then we can't be friends. None of that existed.
Right.
And that was all purposefully created and turned into this DEI against, anything that stands for tradition.
Hmm.
And it's just like it completely divided us. And I think Obama was the biggest contributor to all of that.
Yeah, as a kid, I didn't even know what a Democrat or a Republican was because it was like my parents didn't belong to a party. It was like, well, we're going to see which candidate is the best. And it wasn't like it's us versus them. I didn't know what my teachers' political beliefs
Nope.
were. My daughter
Nope.
sure does. Nowadays, she knows exactly what her teacher's political beliefs are because it's like so, everyone's so consumed with this divide. You're either with us or you're against us kind of thing. And it just makes me wonder because there's been rumors, for years that Obama was kind of pulling the strings in the Biden administration. And here, now that we see that he intentionally set up the incoming president, it's like, what else did he set up?
Right.
Like the BLM stuff, like who knows? But it's just interesting. I think there's going to be a lot more coming to light, hopefully. Or maybe it's all a distraction because that's one of the theories on social media is like, oh, interesting timing, how like Trump's getting all this bad publicity with the whole Epstein thing. So now they pull this out, which I can see that side of it too. So that's why I'm like kind of cautiously optimistic, we'll say. But I'll tell you, the one thing that's giving me hope is Trump reposted this video, and it's one of those like anonymous guys like wearing a mask so you can't see who it is, and he's using like the voice thingy or whatever, which I thought was interesting that Trump reposted that. But the first part of the video I'm not going to play because it basically summarizes like everything I just said that has come to light about this coup. But I want to play the last part of the video because this makes me think maybe there is some accountability coming for him to publicly repost this. So here's the clip.
Words. This was a treasonous conspiracy orchestrated by Barack Obama and carried out by key members of his administration. General Flynn calls it the greatest crime in American history. Others are demanding arrests, indictments, and immediate action from the DOJ, because if this stands, our constitutional republic falls. We now have names. We have documents. We have sworn testimony. No more theories, only accountability. My friends, we are all anonymous, and we speak for the silenced, and we are awake, and we are everywhere, and we will not stop until the truth is reckoned with.
So I thought that was interesting because whenever I see those videos, I'm just like roll my eyes, But for him to post that, I'm like, is he trying to tell us something like hang in there? I know everyone's losing their patience, but something's coming. So he posts that video, right? And then immediately after, he posted a video that was a compilation of like all these big Democrats, including Obama and Pelosi and all these people, all saying the same phrase, no one is above the law. And
Yeah.
that makes me think like he's priming everyone for criminal prosecutions. I mean, could we be so lucky? Or is this just another thing to kind of tide us over while nothing happens? So
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know what to say on that one because I really want to be hopeful, but everything we've seen so far, like
Right.
it's All talk, no action.
Right, exactly. And then I have to play what, not really devil's advocate, but like I do have to remind myself that we're halfway through his first year back, and like he's been dealing with tariffs and then peace in the Middle East and these wars and like, so I'm like, okay, calm down, like maybe there's a lot more happening behind the scenes, but at the same time it's like people have been waiting years for some kind of accountability and it never comes. So we'll see. But when you look at the Democrats and their response to all of this, of course, they're completely denying everything. So, for example, you have Senator Mark Warner at the Aspen Security Forum completely dismissing Tulsi Gabbard's claims, calling her not competent and accusing her of politicizing intelligence, which, he says puts national security at risk. You have Democrat Rep Jim Himes of Connecticut that labeled the accusations as baseless and politically motivated, pointing out that extensive bipartisan congressional investigations affirmed Russia's interference in 2016. And I love how he says they're baseless when like she literally has access to all of the intelligence documents and she says there's hundreds of them detailing everything, but he's going to just say it's baseless. Like, has he seen all those documents? Um, and then the Senate Intelligence Committee also concluded that Russian interference did occur, even if no direct vote tampering was found. So the Uniparty thinks that Russia tampered with things, but, I'm not going to take their word for it, obviously. And then Stephen Miller, who, like, this guy's awesome. He posted on X, quote, Tulsi Gabbard has exposed the startling depths of a seditious coup against the Republic. The forces behind this coup have done and will do anything to protect their grasp on illegal and illegitimate power. Do not underestimate their capabilities or depravities, but we are stronger. I think he's got a point there.
Yeah, I think he's totally right in the sense that we can't underestimate their capabilities and depravities because when you look at this new evidence that has been uncovered, it's all the same people who were involved in the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. And remember how Trump ordered the FBI materials related to that investigation to be released back in March. And that's what launched, the whole Russiagate probe into Trump's 2016 campaign, showed that the Steele dossier was false and that the whole Trump-Russia collusion was a hoax that was being pushed by foreign intelligence in the media. And now these newly declassified documents that Tulsi Gabbard is talking about, they're all showing that the same Obama intel officers already knew back in December of 2016 that Russia didn't alter any votes and they didn't impact the outcome of the election, but they went ahead with that narrative anyway. And this is basically like premeditated manipulation and deception. And it's the same fucking players. So I had to do like a brief overview of the timeline to kind of get this all straight in my own head. And so I just want to share that with everyone just so we can see the flow of how this all transpired. So it was July 2016 when the FBI opened the Crossfire Hurricane investigation that was basically targeting the Trump campaign under suspicion of these ties to Russia. A couple months later, in August and September of 2016, CIA Director John Brennan started briefing Obama on these allegations and basically shaping the Russian interference narrative to the point where by October, the FBI used all this info to obtain that FISA warrant to spy on Trump's campaign staffer, Carter Page. And they were using the, false Steele dossier as evidence, even though internal FBI analysis had already raised doubts about the dossier's credibility, but they went ahead and buried that information. And then in November, after Trump won the election, the December 2016 presidential daily brief to Obama clearly stated that Russia did not alter vote counts or election outcomes. This is the original classified intelligence conclusion. Then on December 29th, Susan Rice, Obama's national security advisor, she holds a classified meeting with Obama, CIA Director John Brennan, FBI Director James Comey, and Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. And Allegedly, they all talk about how to frame the Russia interference narrative to the public. Like a few days later, on January 6, 2017, Brennan and Clapper released the intelligence community assessment, claiming that they now have, quote, high confidence that Russia helped Trump and ran a cyber ops campaign to influence the election, which was a direct contradiction to the December presidential daily briefing just a few weeks beforehand. And that was like right before this big meeting took place. And then the Steele dossier was leaked to the media in January, and everything kind of spiraled from there. But again, it's the same people. James Comey, John Brennan, James Clapper, Susan Rice, Obama. They all shaped the Russia interference intelligence community assessment that shifted the narrative within weeks. And now it's all coming out in these newly declassified documents that clearly contradict the presidential daily brief records. And these lies became the foundation for the Mueller investigation, the impeachment narratives, the FISA warrants, the media attacks on Trump, everything. And Tulsi is just connecting the dots. Like the whole Crossfire Hurricane narrative was built on quote unquote proof that we now know was completely fabricated. So this new information just shows that the entire thing was premeditated and a highly coordinated psy-op, and it was legitimately an attempt at a coup created by the highest levels of government during the Obama administration to delegitimize Trump. Crossfire Hurricane documents, they already laid out how this was all executed, and now this new evidence confirms that all the people involved knew it was fake. And Tulsi did an interview with Fox News yesterday where she again reiterated, she's like, there has to be indictments. And she repeated that no matter how powerful the people are that are involved, they have to be held accountable. And I like vehemently agree. But I would honestly be surprised if this actually goes anywhere or if anyone is held accountable, because despite this new evidence, I feel like this is going to be just like the Epstein files in the sense that any completely damning, like crucial evidence has to have been long destroyed. She may have this, 100 pages of newly declassified documents, but I still feel like we're never going to have the real truth or the real definitive answers because that shit was like burned long ago, right? Even when it came to the Mueller and the Durham investigations, Tulsi was like, they didn't uncover any of this alleged, coordinated operation within our own government. The Mueller probe found like insufficient evidence. The Durham report didn't come up with justification for charges against anyone in the Obama-Hillary world. And she's saying, we need to relook at this stuff because they clearly didn't do a good job. But I mean, honestly, Stephanie, do we expect anything different when our entire fucking government, from like the highest national security and intelligence levels, are all in on this coup together against Trump? Like, no, it is just a massive psyop. And I firmly think any real evidence is long gone, just like with Epstein.
Well, yeah, and now she's passing it to the DOJ, which is Pam Bondi. And I mean, I said before, like, I don't trust her to handle something like this. I don't know if she can handle it because then she's putting her neck on the line, going forward with charges or whatever. And I just don't know that she's going to do that. So we'll
Yeah.
see, and yeah, it could just be a big distraction, another theater performance to take the heat off of the whole Epstein thing. So I want to talk about the latest with the Epstein drama because it's all relevant to what's happening this week. So on Saturday, Trump posted this on Truth Social. Quote, I have asked the Justice Department to release all grand jury testimony with respect to Jeffrey Epstein, subject only to court approval. With that being said, and even if the court gave its full unwavering approval, nothing will be good enough for the troublemakers and radical left lunatics making the request. It will always be more, more, more. MAGA. Okay, so he posts this, and then Pam Bondi posts on X that their motion has been filed to unseal the grand jury transcripts. But here's what is interesting. Okay, she didn't file just one motion. She filed multiple motions to release like all of the court documents. So she filed to release the documents from Epstein's grand jury trial in 2019, which is what everyone's talking about. But then she went to another court to have the transcripts released from Ghislaine Maxwell's trial. And then on top of that, she's also asking for all the records to be unsealed from Epstein's trial in South Florida from back in the 2000s. That's the one where he got like the sweetheart deal and basically just got away with it. But notice how in Trump's post, he said the documents can only be released with the court's approval. And as we've talked about all year, these judges don't want to do a damn thing to help Trump. They're trying to stop him every step of the way. So here's where this like other theory comes in that people are talking about. What if all of the Epstein drama last week was like an intentional chess move to get the Democrats to finally admit that the Epstein crimes were real, number one, and but also getting them to demand that the documents be released? Because that way, when the court has to decide whether they're going to release the documents or not, it's the Democrats that have been demanding the files be released, as well as the entire American public. So that I would think would make these judges more likely to unseal them. And maybe, like we were saying, why don't they just say the Biden administration destroyed the evidence? Maybe they did destroy the evidence, and the only evidence that's left is inside those sealed court documents. Because Kash Patel said something on Joe Rogan about that. Like, unless we get those sealed court documents, we don't have enough, or like something to that effect. So maybe that was his way of saying, like, we don't have anything, but there is something. We just can't get to it because it's a sealed court document. And maybe Trump knew the only way they'd be able to get those documents would be to create this public outrage where everyone's talking about it and kind of bait the Democrats into finally admitting publicly that the Epstein crimes were real and the documents need to be released. Because remember, up until a couple of weeks ago, the Democrats and the mainstream media wanted nothing to do with the Epstein case. They wouldn't even admit that like actual crimes occurred. And they certainly never released any documents during the Biden administration. And I mean, my God, they had the House, the Senate, the presidency. Nothing ever was released. They didn't want to talk about it. They avoided it like the plague. But now that they could use this to make Trump look bad, they're going on the record and demanding transparency and demanding for all the files. So like it could be one big chess move.
It is so hypocritical. I don't know if you saw this clip on Fox News, but a reporter was asking Nancy Pelosi if the Trump admin should release the Epstein files. And she was adamant. She was like, yes, absolutely. So then the reporter says, well, why do you think Biden didn't do it for 4 years? And Pelosi doesn't say a fucking word. She literally like turns around and starts walking away. So the reporter continues to try and press her. And he's like, do you know why they didn't do it? Like, do you think they should have? And Pelosi like completely ignores the reporter and gets into her car. And the same shit happened last Thursday. You had Rep. Jamie Raskin. He went on Morning Joe, and Joe Scarborough was pressing him on the issue. And he's like, Congressman, you could have gotten that information, back in 21 to 25 when Democrats controlled the DOJ. Like, it was a crisis then. It's a crisis now. Why didn't Democrats call for it? And Raskin gives this like totally lame excuse about how you'd have to go back and look at specific particular prosecutorial decisions and then maybe try to reconstruct the record. Like it was just a total non-answer. And then, you've got Pramila Jayapal, that other lunatic Democrat in Congress who's screaming for transparency. And so she was asked by CNN why she never called for transparency on Epstein when Biden was president. And her response was, quote, I would have been happy to raise it then as well. Frankly, we were focused on so many different pieces, end quote. Like another total bullshit, hypocritical answer because none of these people actually give a fuck about transparency with the Epstein files or with any other government cover-ups that were led by Democrats. They only care because now it has to do with Trump.
Yeah. Exactly. And now their hypocrisy is on the world stage for everyone to see. And it really does make them look bad. Like you said, they can't even defend it. They're giving a word salad answer. So I don't know. It just seems like if they think this is going to hurt Trump, that's probably the only way that these partisan judges are going to agree to release the files. And so the Patriot Dad on TikTok that I follow, he pointed out something interesting. He was saying how Dan Scavino posted the word karma, like just the word karma in like a circle on Thursday at 9:06 p.m. 1 minute later, Trump posted that post that I read earlier. And then 2 minutes later, Pam Bondi posted that she will file the motion to have the court release the documents. So he was saying how, like, they're probably all sitting in a room together, like, plotting this out, knowing that the Democrats have backed themselves into a corner where they've been demanding that the documents be released. And so now they can't turn around and try to keep the documents sealed. And so, he's saying like this is becoming like more and more apparent that this is an obvious play that they did to get the documents unsealed.
Well, maybe that's why Trump is so like adamantly supporting Pam Bondi. Like there's got to be something more there.
Right.
Don't you
That
think?
see, like that would make sense where, I mean, he really took a lot of heat for that. And so going with that theory, it's like if the Democrats and the media were all busy focusing on the Epstein drama, behind the scenes, you have Tulsi Gabbard that was preparing to disclose like all the dirt on the people who tried to subvert Trump's presidency. And now within the same week, we might see even more dirt on the Democrats if the Epstein files are actually released by the court, which I heard today, like, don't hold your breath. It's, the judicial system, and it'll probably be months before anything happens because you have to jump through all these hoops and red tape. So I don't think anything will happen for a while, but at least there's something started. I don't know. We'll see. But here's the other thing. Remember how I said Pam Bondi filed motions in Florida as well as New York, right? And I was thinking about it, and I think the reason for that is because when you look at these judges and how they've treated Trump, Florida is the only place where the judges have been fair to him. So I'm just thinking maybe Pam Bondi did that knowing the New York judges may not agree to release the documents, but if Florida does, that'll put more pressure on New York to do something, especially if there's some damning evidence in the Florida case. And then the other thing to remember is during Trump's first term, Alexandra Acosta was speaking to Congress when he was being vetted for the labor secretary position. And he testified to Congress that the reason Epstein got that sweetheart deal in Florida was because he was told that Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. So there could be some very interesting information in those court documents in Florida. So I guess, there's so many theories. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out, but I think it could lead to something.
Well, this makes me wonder, like, okay, so the Trump admin fired Maurene Comey last Wednesday, and she's the daughter of ex-FBI Director James Comey. And she was like this high-level U.S. attorney in Manhattan, and she was the lead prosecutor against both Epstein and I swear I'm gonna fuck up her name again. Ghislaine?
Elaine.
Ghislaine. Fuck, why can't I ever say that? And Ghislaine Maxwell, and also in the recent Diddy case. Well, now my thinking after everything you said is like maybe this is part of the accountability plan because she was let go on the 16th, like suddenly with no explanation from the DOJ. All we know is she was let go by presidential authority under Article 2. And like when you think about it, if anyone has knowledge of what really happened in the Epstein case, you know she does. She basically oversaw and like if there was a cover up, she was the one protecting this whole cover up because no information was ever made public. There was no photographic evidence from the trials, no client testimonies, no flight manifest analysis, like nothing. And she would have had access to any sealed records, evidence, victim interviews, any federal agreements, because she was like part of the argument in court to keep the Epstein material sealed due to like privacy and safety. So if anyone would know where the bodies are buried, like it would be her. And maybe Trump firing her is part of the chess game, right? Maybe he's setting the stage to declassify information that was sealed because now she's not there to try and stop anything from being unsealed. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm grasping at straws here, but like the timing of that is too coincidental, you know?
Yeah, I mean, why would it be this specific week
Right.
that she's fired? Like, I think it's a clear message too. Like, I don't know. I think there's so much more going on behind the scenes than we realize. And it kind of would make sense as to why Cash Patel was acting that way. And like the Joe Rogan interview, like he was almost trying to look like he was lying or like a deer in headlights because that would make the Democrats and everyone think like, oh, see, they have nothing. So we can go ahead and request that everything be released because there's nothing there. Like maybe it was all just to get
Mhm.
the confidence of the Democrats and the media so that they would get on board with releasing everything.
That would be the ultimate fucking chess game. I mean, seriously.
Right? Because no one wanted this released more than Cash Patel. He talked
Right.
about it for years. And then for him to just act that way, everyone's like, what the hell? Like, what a traitor. Well, maybe not. Maybe he's just like trying to be a good actor to get to pull one over on the Democrats.
Him and Bongino,
Yeah,
right? And
right.
then the other thing that it's just like been very interesting to me is like, Megyn Kelly is very good friends with Dan Bongino.
Hmm.
And she has been talking about Epstein nonstop. And she will constantly say things like, I know Dan, we're friends, I have confidence in him, I have faith in him. But has she ever come out and like outright asked him what the fuck is going on? Because if she has, she's certainly not communicating any of that to her audience.
Right.
So, like, is this all just part of the game? Like, that would just be awesome.
Well, yeah. And then think about it. You talked about Charlie Kirk the other day, right? He just had his Turning Point USA summit where, like, the whole time they talked about this. And then
Right.
all of a sudden he's like, oh, I talked to Trump and I'm not going to be speaking on this anymore. Well,
Right.
that would make sense if Trump was like, hey, and then he said something about unsealing the grand jury documents. So
Mhm.
maybe Trump kind of filled him in like, hey, something's coming, like, quit bashing me. I mean, that it would all
Yeah.
make sense now. Like, all the weird behavior and everything that's been taking place, it would make sense if this is what was going on behind the scenes.
That would be again just the ultimate fucking game. Um, Yeah, who knows? But one thing I am curious about, I don't know if you saw what Senator Ron Wyden said last week.
Mm-mm.
He's one of the members of the Senate Finance Committee, and I think it was Thursday. He said that Treasury officials have a cached file linked to Epstein's finances that include details of over 4,700 wire transfers, totaling 1.1 billion, and that four major banks flagged more than 1.5 billion in suspicious activity reports, including transfers through Russian banks that were tied to sex trafficking networks. And he was saying that this could serve as potential leads to investigate Epstein's overseas trafficking operations. Well, apparently the Treasury Department is denying this. I haven't seen if they've said anything on record, but it's denial and political theater. But Wyden said that he's specifically requesting these documents from Pam Bondi and Cash Patel, and they haven't said anything either. So I'm wondering, like, is this another false flag being raised by the Democrats? Because just like all the rest of them, if he really cared about this, he could have pushed for this information during the past 4 years of the Biden admin, and he didn't. So
Well,
I
yeah.
just hope that all these Democrats who are speaking out now, when they fucking kept their mouth shut for the last 4 years and were complicit in the cover up, like, I hope they all fucking get exposed and go down.
Well, that's just like Ro Khanna, who was like, I'm going to keep bringing this up for the Epstein
Right.
files to be released until they are. And it's like, you had 4 years to do that and you didn't bring it up once, but now you're going to bring it up. But this is interesting with these wire transfers because just think about it. Like, they could have all these wire transfers to bank accounts that you know aren't going to be tied to individuals. It's going to be shell
Right.
organizations, just like they do with the NGO shit. But maybe if they had the bank records along with the sealed documents that have the client list and the whole operation, they could link the two together. So, like, maybe they're sitting on that information, meaning like Cash Patel and Pam Bondi, until they compare it with the court documents. I don't know. I know I sound super hopeful and
Yeah.
naive, but it's like, it would explain so much because everyone's just like shocked. Like, what the hell is going on?
I
There
was gonna say, I
has to be
hope,
some explanation, right?
yeah, I hope our conspiracy brains are right on this one, like
Yeah.
in a positive way, because that would just, God, that would be amazing if everything we just talked about was actually coming together like this.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I should have made notes on this. I kind of forgot about it. But did you see how Trump is now suing, I think, Rupert Murdoch and like the Wall Street Journal because they did an article where they were saying allegedly that Trump had given Epstein a birthday card like back in the
Yes.
day, but they didn't
Mhm.
post a picture of this birthday card. Like they describe it, but they don't have any actual evidence they posted. If they had the card, number one, you know they would publish a photo of it. Number two, you know they would have used it during the campaign to try and
Right.
place doubt on Trump. So like clearly it's fake. And so now he's suing them for like $10 billion dollars or something.
Even Elon Musk was saying it's fake, and he's no Trump fan right now, right?
Yeah.
And even he was like, "This is not Trump's language."
Yeah. Yeah, Trump was like, I don't use those words and I also don't draw pictures because there was
Right.
supposedly like a picture of a naked woman or something. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's they're just wait for all that because I mean, they will stop at nothing to get Trump and it's already starting. And if there's a chance that these documents can be unsealed, they're going to probably pull all kinds of shit in the
Yeah.
media and on the left. So we'll see. But I don't know. I feel a little bit better. I feel like, okay, maybe there's more to the story here and we just have to wait, which is annoying because I'm not a patient person. But
Yeah.
what else are we going to do?
Well, hopefully we're right on this one.
I hope so. And I hope that we see all those Obama officials get arrested. That would be great.
I hope we see Obama get arrested.
Well, that's another thing, real quick, before we go, because that has, I wonder if that's why Tulsi Gabbard said, even though Obama can't be jailed, I wonder if she's referring to the Supreme Court ruling that gives presidential immunity. Because remember, like that went
But
through
that's
during the whole Trump
only,
thing.
yes, that's true, but doesn't that have to do with things that were done in an official capacity? I mean, I guess he was in an official capacity, but if you find out treasonous behavior in an official capacity, that shouldn't give you immunity,
It shouldn't, but like it could possibly.
I
So
guess.
I don't know. Maybe that's what she was referring to. I guess we'll have to see how it all plays out. I think if anything, it'll be the other people listed and not Obama, because I just can't imagine anything will
Well, what
happen to
about
him.
Hillary? She was complicit in all this shit too.
Yeah, her campaign paid for the dossier.
Right.
So, like,
She's not being mentioned in any of this.
right. Yeah. What? So we need more information, okay? Like they need to speed up this process and stop slow walking it.
And I'm wondering, like, maybe that's purposeful too, because she's a fucking key player and no one's talking about her.
I don't think anything that they announce publicly is not purposeful. Like I
Yeah.
think they I mean just think about it. While Biden was president, he's probably been plotting this whole time of like what he will do to get justice once he's in it's not like he's just on the fly thinking this shit up. Like he's probably had a plan in place for years.
Yeah.
And I'm sure every piece of the puzzle is very purposeful. Hopefully.
Mm.
Or I could be
Yeah.
wrong and we're just naive and stupid for believing it.
That's a possibility
We'll
too.
see. Yeah, we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it, but I don't know. That I feel like that's a good way to start the week. I feel a little more optimistic than I did last week. So I'm just gonna go with it and say, like, hey, it's all part of the plan.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for tuning in. And yeah, we'll see you back here on Wednesday.